right, guys, welcome to the Buyer's Box podcast. We have with us today Ed Bocchino. Ed, so glad to have you back on the show. Today we are going to be talking about some lending objections. I know you kind of went over a couple with Ellie in the last episode. How you been?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing pretty good this spring. I'm so happy the weather's finally kind of warming back up. The last couple of days have been pretty cold.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, no doubt. But hey, it's the holiday season. You know, you're gonna get, what do you get? All 4 seasons in a day here, right? Isn't that what they say?
You know, we went to the light show the other day with our youngest daughter on the coldest day, and there was no lines. So it was the best ever. So, I'm going to hop right into it.
Yeah.
First question here, and first objection that we'd really like to, maybe help some of our agents, perform a little bit better with, especially if they have a working relationship with a lender. What do you say, when the client, the lead says, I want to shop around for the best rate?
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, I'm a consumer too. Pricing is certainly super important to me, as well as service and reputation, right? I review things online all the time, right? Something I'm looking to purchase, something I'm looking to buy. And, specifically just think about Amazon, right? Overall, right? If you're sitting there looking at a specific product, they show the reviews of the product, right? Yeah. If one is, $20 at a 3.2 review, and one is $25 at a 4.9 review, which one are you probably going to buy if you're paying attention to service? Yeah. Right? If you're paying attention to reputation and service. So, to me, I would say, look, no doubt. It's definitely become more of a flat world, right? In regard to pricing, in regard to interest rate, ever since, the implosion of the housing market in 2008, so many regulations that come into play. It's flat, right? Everyone's within 1/8% of each other. But I'm a consumer too, so I definitely understand. Okay. But what I look at is a combination of two things, right? Price is important to me, but service is equally as important, and there's a value to that.
Yeah. We say the same thing as agents, right? Because there's agents that'll charge, all sorts of different prices. And, we don't necessarily focus on trying to be the cheapest agent, but we really try to focus on having the best experience for the client.
Bottom line. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. All right. So another thing that we oftentimes work with our agents on our team or, other agents in the industry is like, when should we get the lead or the prospect or the client to the lender? And really I guess the objection I really kind of want to handle is, what if they say they're not ready to talk to the lender? Mm-hmm. What is a good segue to get that conversation started? Mm-hmm. And to, open up communication with a lending partner? Yeah,
well, first off, the first question I'd probably be asking, and I'm sure you guys do, is what is your timeline, right? So forget the lending side, because if they say end of 2026,
right?
Okay, well, you know what? Maybe it's just a conversation with the lender. And now you know which bucket they fall into. You're likely not running out tomorrow to go show them homes, right? Now, look, don't get me wrong. Some people say, hey, we're just coming down to look, and they end up buying, right?
Yeah, all the time.
So, that happens all the time. Yeah. You don't want to discount the end of, because then they close with somebody else, right? Because you didn't, but you want to gauge it to some level based on what their timeline is. If their timeline is within the next 90 days, we'll start with 90 days, right? Because immediate, we know is immediate, right? Immediate, yeah. Okay, great. Are you going to be paying cash or are you going to be financing? That's the next question.
Yeah.
That's it. And I'm paying cash. Excellent. Right? You do what you do from a proof of funds perspective when you get to the point of putting an offer in, and everything's great. On the financing side, it's, oh, that's great. Have you spoken with a financial institution yet or a lender in regard to where you think you guys might be comfortable at in buying? Not what do you qualify for? You know what I'm saying?
All about the wording.
Yeah, it's all about the wording, not pre-approved. Have you spoken with a lender to kind of start to get pre-positioned, right? In purchasing your new home.
I like
right?
that.
Yes, I have. No, I haven't. Oh, you have? That's great. Who are you working with? I'm working with X. That's awesome. And we're trying to buy a condo? Okay. No. But I think we covered that already.
Condos was last episode. Yeah. We're gonna leave that
right. But you see what I'm saying, right? It's just boom right into the next. And then if they're not working with someone and they are looking to, do something within the next 90 days, that happens very fast. Right now would definitely be the time to consider, right, chatting with someone to get an idea of where you guys are comfortable with, right? 90 days happens real fast. 30 of it, by the way, is in contract and closing.
Yeah.
So, we've got 60 days which, as you know, I love as you know, right? Because they say I've got to know that, right? As you know, happens very quickly.
Yep.
What I can do, if you'd like, is I can, because we move at your pace, right? So take that away from them, right? We move at your pace, right? But if you're looking to do this, I can get you connected on text with, our top lending partner here at the beach. And then now, by the way, from a lead standpoint, you get to see everything that's happening, right? Get them to agree to put you on a text with your lending partner, and you will know if they're responding, not responding, how quickly that communication's happening, because that's a lead. We want that immediately. We want to talk to them immediately.
And I really think, I'm glad that you brought up, putting it in a group chat. We learned a long time ago that that's definitely helped with our conversion.
100%.
And it really holds everyone accountable.
100%.
Right? So,
because how many times does the client call you who's got a 520 credit score and, makes $7 an hour? I don't even know if that's legal, right? But that you've already shown 3 homes to, right? That you just don't know. And now when it comes time to get qualified, they disappear.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
They disappear. How many times does that happen?
And that's why as agents, whether it's myself or someone on the team, like we really coach on getting them pre-approved. And that was one of the reasons why I really partnered with you guys was, your guys' pre-approval process is really easy with that soft form of credit. It really, really helps overcome some objections. And it really just puts our clients at ease and allows us to get them out shopping. Especially here in our markets. Our market's a little bit different than I think anywhere else. I'm not necessarily originally from here. My wife Allie is, and I remember growing up in some areas that were more like a traditional, not a second home market.
Yeah, primary resident, right?
Yeah.
What do they call it? Bedroom town or sleeping town? I don't know what it's called, but
and here, it's a lot of second homes. Investments. We've talked about condos. We got a lot of retirees, and I think it's really important, especially as you kind of start pre-planning for that retirement. I think we kind of chat about pre-retirement, knowing what payments and things look like. Now, obviously, it's really hard to tell, what rates are going to be because they do fluctuate and change so much. And I think it's kind of important to point out to our listeners is you've been doing this for a really long time, right?
Well, thanks for aging me.
Well, someone had to. It kind of segues me into like the next question though. So like rates obviously are important, pricing's important, all those things are important to a lot of people. But like, what do we say to folks that are like, I want to wait for rates to come down?
Yeah. So how much more do you want to pay for the house?
Right.
I mean, it's similar to listing a home, where my first question would be, well, before we even get started, let me ask you a question. How long would you like to carry your home for? Right? Because if you list it here, we're holding that baby. If you list it here, we're selling it. It's real simple.
Right.
I don't know if I'd make a good agent. I am just too black and white, but I might make the best because you're in or you're out. Yeah. You're in or you're out, right? I mean, you understand I've done this for this amount of time. Let me tell you something. This isn't my first story. I'm saying this. This is a string I pull on my back, right? And it's the same thing that comes out. Why? Because it's what it is. It is what it is, right? So in our economy, everything's about supply and demand. It's real simple, right? If rates go down, then more buyers come into the market. More buyers equal more demand, and the price of the product will go up. Right. There'll be a little cushion of time where people are figuring things out, right? Similar to when rates started to go up, right? And values started to soften. Yep. Let's not say go down. Let's say soften, because at one point people were paying $50, $75, $20, $100,000 more than what it was listed for, right?
Not because it was worth it, in my opinion, just because they wanted it. I kind of felt like.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, there was definitely, it's crazy how things become a trend, right? Imagine buying a home's a trend, right? It becomes a trend. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
Right? It was affordable, though. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you're talking, what, $28 per $10,000 in some cases, maybe $30 per $10,000, $300 per $100,000. Where today you're more like $620, right, per $100,000. So look, the affordability level was insane, but it worked in reverse. There was maybe a super short window where first-time homebuyers were able to jump in on a home at a good price, and then boom, the demand came in, the prices went up. Even though rates were low, they still couldn't get it because they were being outbid, right, with cash offers and your REO companies and your REIT companies. It was crazy. But look, why wait? Why not? the time is when you're ready, right? If you're trying to time out interest rates, good luck,
Yeah.
right? If you're trying to time out, if you could do that, by the way, right? You would own the world, right?
Yeah.
If you could predict what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's a lot of words to use, but I would just say, yeah, definitely understand. Look, it's just the laws of supply and demand. It's real simple. And more people are buying into that because I think that's the message that has really, resonated out there about supply and demand. So that's an easy, yeah, no doubt. We could definitely do that, but, we'll likely, as rates come down, as there's going to be more demand. So, maybe you're saving $30 a month in interest rate, but you're paying $15,000 more for the home 12 months from now, potentially.
Right.
Which one would you rather do?
And I think for me in my business, a lot of the folks that I work with are retirees, right? And we went to lunch with some past clients the other day, and the topic of rates got brought up, and they shared with me their first interest rate was like the 18%.
Yeah.
I don't know what rates are today. I didn't necessarily.
Yeah, mid sixes, great credit, everything, mid sixes, somewhere around there.
Yeah, that's way lower than 18%.
Yeah. And by the way, I should know this, right? But I think the average over time is like over 8%. Yeah. Like we are below average, historically speaking.
It's really hard, I think, sometimes for the consumer, whether they're the buyer or the seller, to see that or understand that because, man, we got such low rates for a couple of years, and I think in the industry, we jokingly call it the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people trapped in homes that they might not necessarily want to be in because of that rate.
Yeah, and they can't afford to move. Yep.
I think that kind of segues into, kind of my, probably my next and final question for episode today is like, we oftentimes with, as an agent talk with the buyer or the seller, they don't want to overpay, right? So like on the lending side of it, if you hear that type of, objection, like what's your response?
Overpay meaning what? I'm not asking you. That's more rhetorical, right? Yeah. What do you mean by overpay, right? To me, the value of something is what someone's willing to pay for it. So you're deciding what the value is at the end of the day.
Right.
You may negotiate what you consider the value to be and the seller considers the value to be and maybe find some middle ground, but don't do anything in spite of yourself.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I've had folks say, well, I'm not going to go $5,000 higher. Look, do you love the home? We do. Is this your last home? It is. So this is going to be your home for maybe the next 20 years. So $5,000 over the next 20 years is going to keep you from buying this home just because you want to win from a negotiation standpoint. See, the thing benefit, and we can speak to them that way, right? We're a third party.
Yeah.
We can speak to them that way. That's the type, by the way, agents, that's the type of conversation we're having. I can't tell you everyone's having that, right? Yeah. But that's what we're having. And it's not to make it happen, but it's to keep them from doing something that they may regret.
Yeah.
If they absolutely love the home and it's $62 a month difference for $10,000 for the rest of your life, who cares? And I say that, by the way, just like that. Who cares?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you know what? That makes sense. So, yeah, let us handle that. But
yeah, well, and I think it's important,
But it's good that agents understand what I just said right there because you don't need me to say that.
Right.
You guys can start off that way. Definitely understand. Generally on average, the price is about $62 per month per 10 grand.
Right.
Right. I would hate, we're going to do our best. Don't get me wrong. Right. But I'd hate for you guys to, for the next 20 years, you'll be in this home for you to let, $10,000, keep you from buying this house.
Yeah. And I think it's important, especially as an agent that's, actively negotiating a contract or, trying to get it across the finish line, having a lending partner that they can kind of, be another sounding board for the client because it is a big decision. Mm-hmm. It is a big transaction. Thinking of living somewhere for 20 years, gosh, for some of us, it seems like a lifetime.
Well, and they confide in us, right? I mean, depending. If I'm an order taker and I'm just, what's your name? What, primary residence, whatever. There's no relationship. They're not confiding. There's no trust. There's no respect, if you will, right? Yeah. For what knowledge we may have or may be able to consult or collaborate with them on. Working with our team, it is about collaboration. By the time we're done with that conversation, they're listening to what we're saying.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're listening to what we're saying because these are the conversations that we're having with them, from a third party perspective. We have no skin in the game. Do the mortgage, not do the mortgage. That's cool. We're going to do it either which way eventually.
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't matter if, if you get this home or not. I don't say that to them, but that's the intent in my mind that allows me with confidence to be able to just speak clearly and articulately about keeping them from doing something that's going to hurt themselves.
Yeah. We can keep looking, but if this is the home, how much longer are we going to look to find the next home?
Right.
Well, I really appreciate you spending some time with me today.
No, thanks for having me.
I really think those are some really good objection handlers. I think as agents, we probably hear that a lot in the business. As a lender, I'm sure you do as well. If anybody on the podcast wanted to be able to reach out with you, wanted to be able to work with you, what's the best contact info?
Ed Bocchino, Revolution, cell phone, 843-655-8078.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate all of our listeners tuned in today. Hopefully, you guys got some value from this. This can help in your business. And if you're looking for a great lender partner, we know everyone at Revolution's, really taking care of our clients and our team.
Appreciate that.
We look forward to our continued partnership and, have a great 2026.
You too. Yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays.